During the next few lessons, we're going to look at classical music, and we're going to concentrate on the characteristics, new things that happened, the difference between the Baroque and the classical music, some of the composers, and how to identify this era. We finished the Baroque era, and we know that it roughly ended 1750. So we see the dates there: classical music, 1750 to 1810, approximately. Now, classical with a C, okay, means anything that's top class. So that's small c. So it can be a book, or literature or art, anything that is top class, and particularly refers to the ancient Greeks and Romans. With that capital C, it means a specific style of composers. The term classical is commonly and incorrectly applied to any music which is not modern. Sometimes if you listen to music on YouTube, they will say classical composers and they will add Chopin or they will add Ravel. The correct term for this is actually art music. So classical with a capital C refers to this time. So make use of the capital C when you refer to the classical music of this time. These two dates, 1750 and 1810, should not be applied too strictly. Baroque style did not make an abrupt change to classical style. There were signs of change as far back as the 1730s. And so classical style, in fact, began to grow up within the last few years of the Baroque era. The Baroque trio sonata, we still remember, began to give way to the classical sonata. And the Italian overture, that's the one that's fast, slow, fast, that we found in many Baroque operas, grew into the classical symphony. It's also fast, slow, fast. While Bach, J.S. Bach, continued to compose in the mainly contrapuntal style of the late Baroque, that's the polyphonic style, his sons, C.P.E. Bach, J.C. Bach, though they held great respect for their father's music, favored a lighter, more homophonic style in their own compositions. As for a date of the end of the classical period, some might suggest 1827, and that's the year of the death of Beethoven, while others would give a much earlier date, for instance 1800. Now, the main composers of the classical era, you will see a lot of German names here, Austrian names here: Stamitz, Gluck, C.P.E. Bach, the son of J.S. Bach, J.C. Bach, another son, Beethoven, there I see the date 1827, as some suggested maybe the end of the classical era. Haydn, Papa Haydn, Mozart. So try and listen to some of the music that you can hear the characteristics of the things that we're going to discuss during the next few lessons. Stil galant, I see the meaning actually in the word there, elegant, galant. This is an early classical style and a very courtly style. It was meant to please the listener as opposed to making the listener think. So it's like background music. It's pleasing to the ear, but it doesn't make a huge statement. C.P.E. Bach and J.C. Bach were the main composers who made use of this style. The later classical style made more use of balance and control, grace and beauty of melody, and the form and design became important. Now, the texture of classical music is basically homophonic. You'll hear in the background, I have a melody and accompaniment. Baroque music was mainly polyphonic. The orchestra began to grow in the classical era. The harpsichord continuo gradually fell out of use. We still remember the harpsichord continuo, where we had the harpsichord filling in the harmonies. We had the cello playing the bass line. Now that fell out of use. Wind instruments became more important. So wind instruments can be the brass or the woodwinds, especially the horns, to bind the texture. Strings were still the main instruments, you can hear in the background. They're still the backbone of the orchestra, and to which were added 2 horns, 1 or 2 flutes, or a pair of oboes. Gradually, composers added 1 or 2 bassoons, and occasionally a pair of trumpets or a pair of kettle drums. So we had structure. Clarinets were introduced towards the end of the 18th century. Mozart was the composer responsible for the popularity of this instrument. The woodwind section became a self-contained section. So the development of the woodwind section was very important in the classical time. And you will see there we had flutes and oboes and clarinets, bassoons. And then for the brass we had 2 horns, 2 trumpets. For the percussion we had 2 kettle drums, and then of course the strings. Now music for the piano was very important in the classical era. Now this instrument was invented as early as 1698 by Cristofori in Italy. And this instrument allows soft and loud notes to be played. So the instrument that you have in your house or at school is actually a pianoforte, but we say it's a piano because this instrument, pianoforte, can play soft and loud. The strings were hit by hammers as opposed to being plucked. So on the harpsichord, that's the plucking, detached sound, that's a little bit metally. And with the piano, the strings were hit by hammers. So try and find a YouTube video or some images of the inside of the piano that you can see, because this is one of the main instruments of the classical time. And on this instrument, I could play more expression. I could play legato, staccato, cantabile. I could go louder. I could go softer. I have the opportunity to hold on the notes with using my pedal. Now that we didn't have in the Baroque era. The Alberti bass is a simple broken chord pattern in the left hand, which keeps the music going and outlines the harmony. So you see there, la, 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 la. So I have C, G, E, G, C, G, E, D. And it's like an ostinato pattern that is repeated. And it outlines the harmony. So there I see I'm in C major. It outlines the tonic chord. There I go to my dominant 7th because I have the notes G, B, D, F. And there I go back to my tonic chord. C.P.E. Bach was one of the first piano composers and started composing around 1750. J.C. Bach gave the first piano performance in London. So they made this instrument popular as well. A lot of music in that time was printed for harpsichord or piano, so you could use both. But the harpsichord gradually faded out of use. So here I can already see why this is classical music. I played legato there and they show me the legato slur. The music looks homophonic because I have a melody at top and I have my Alberti bass. That's a pattern from the classical time. So I have lots of things that will show me that this is classical music. Also, if you see crescendo or decrescendo or staccatos or accents marked in, that is a sign that this is classical music.